Alright, so we finally have the parts, I think, to put this wheel back together. And I'd mentioned before that that mount had cracked, probably due to the violence of those springs rolling around and hitting this thing. If I'm honest, my original thought was to weld this up, and I knew DOT wouldn't like that, but I could paint it. They'd never notice it. And I saw it was broken down here. I went ahead and bought a new one to put on there. Yeah, I'm not going to get a socket on both sides, so I'm going to have to pop it with an open-inch wrench. Well, we'll see. We'll see how much power it takes to get that loose. But I'll take this off. Don't believe anything's going to move. And then I'll knock that bolt out, put the new bar on, put it back in, clamp this thing up. This has got to come out anyways so that I can inspect the guts of the wedge brakes and make sure that they are all hunky-dory inside there. Well, it hasn't been super successful. I do not have an 1 5/16 wrench to put the box end up here. There just is not room for a socket. I've tried my little crescent wrench. That didn't work. In removing the brake chamber, I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention, and I managed to just touch it right here. So now I need a new fitting.
That's an old battery.
Yeah, it's definitely an old battery.
You know, it's creosoted and stuff, but it's an old battery. If I were you, I'd keep it.
No, but it is a cool old battery. My helper's taking apart some stuff to keep himself amused. This just is not going well.
For you.
Yeah, or me.
Would we be taking the machine apart?
Yeah, we probably would. Well, it's a bit unorthodox, but I got it loose. Just put a chisel in up there, wedged it solid against there, and Bob's your uncle. It even seems to have come off without really tearing anything up, which is good, because I'm going to reuse all of it. I'll just get the rest of it off. You can see this appears to be a newer brake than that. At least there's a little surface rust up here. So maybe that broke first and that broke second, I don't know. There's the new bracket. Don't fit. It don't fit at all. Not even close. Not even the same shape. I'll have to go back and double check that I measured the right side or I bought the right side before I get too grumpy. Though I had double checked it 2 or 3 times on my order. But it's not the same shape as the rest of them. It's too low. Right? It wants to sit up here, not down here. And you flip it this way, not only is it still too low, but it's going the wrong direction. Maybe I'll be stuck welding my old one up after all. Okay, so I made this do hickama-thingamajig here. That bolts on right there, and we're clamped and supported. The old clamp was right here. The new clamp is 1.5 inches inboard. I don't like that necessarily, but it will work. Best I can tell, I ordered, based on the description, the correct bracket, and the best I can tell, they sent me the bracket that I ordered. So your guess is as good as mine. I'm just going to put it together. It's time to be rolling. That'll hold everything nice and tight, and I should not have any more problems. I suppose a little more leverage on the thing, but in reality it's just supposed to keep it from bouncing up and down, right? And that's more than adequate for that. More than adequate for that, even if it looks a little crude. So, on to the next one. Alright, now down to the chaos that started it all in the first place. I can't find the rest of them, but there, that's what's left of that. It's been rattling around in there. Best I can tell, this set up a really ugly harmonic balance inside. You can see where the spring's bit in sideways a time or two, something like that. You know, about all I'm looking at for damage inside is a few scratches on the drum. It's been off for a while, so it's kind of rusty. A few scratches on the drum, which are nothing, it's fine. And this little shot peen look at the brakes themselves from these things rattling around in there. Though I think they caused a sort of a harmonic bounce kind of thing. And then I get in here and look at that. This thing has already been sleeved. I don't think that's factory. The TMs don't show. TMs don't show anything there when I was paging through them. So that is a seal surface that got tore up, and they put this sleeve, which is really thick, really thick on there. It's got me a bit concerned. It's also got a bit of a sharp edge, so I'm going to have to emery paper that down. But it's yet another indication. Everything about this truck, every single thing, from the rubber to wear patterns on the floor to, you know, the inside of the rims when you take the lug nuts off, everything about this truck tells me that it has not had a lot of miles. It just hasn't. I think we are probably looking at factory mileage when I bought it. And yet, already had. There's just so many things that every time you open these things up, there's something broken inside. You know, again, there's no real marks on the axles from being lifted or jacked. You know, it's just. But here we go, one more time, where we've got repaired damage from inside the unit. I mean, if we were looking at a dump truck with 200,000 on it, that's one thing, right? Anyways, so I managed to, I hook and by crook, to come up with a wedge brake kit. Wes Simpson put me on to how to find that. So that was cool. It was nice of him, because it wasn't listed. But to show me the part numbers and whatnot, even though two of us haven't gotten along in the past. What is interesting is these are 14-degree wedges, and the old ones are 12. Now when I set them up on each other, the rear of the slope comes out the same height, but the upper edge of the slope starts a little higher. I don't know what that means. Whether it's a later adaptation or none of this crap matters. But yeah, that's a 12 degree and that's a 14. My original thought, see this is perfect, right? There's no problems with that. I was going to leave it alone, and this is 200 some odd dollars worth of one wheel. So it just had two. So I was going to save it. I know that there's the wedge piston up in the front. It's got a bad rubber O-ring, and every so often I take it apart and clean it and grease it. But I was going to swap out, right? I was going to save them. But I don't know if I like the idea that this one has 14 degree and that one has 12. But then it is just an air pressure system. So this piston gets however many psi and this one gets however many psi. You know, in theory, this one's going to move farther per stroke, but they're both just going to wedge up. Yeah, but this one's going to have more leverage. It's going to mean that this one is doing more of the work. Boy, they seem to be fine. I think I'm just going to change the one. Yeah, I know. I can already hear you complaining. But I think I'm just going to change the one. So, there's the little gripper bits that slide inside that sleeve. So this goes in like so. It'll have to be greased, obviously. This will pass through it, but no, that's a wedge assembly. A rusty wedge assembly. Well, I'll have to spray this with oil and put it in a bag. Where are they? Okay. So there's an adjustment. Well, anyways, that goes together like that. And that goes down in like that. I don't like that. Does the old one wobble around like that? I guess the old one wobbles around too. Anyways, best I can tell is that, and then a seal, and then this thing, and then some magic. And I did it in the wrong order, because this would have been way easier to do if I hadn't put this all together, because then I could have the wedge out of there and dump solvent down through the whole thing. And yeah, so do all this first before assembling that. I don't know why I did that first. Regardless, that's just gotta things and do it. Figure it might be best if we did this at real speed. Alright, so I put that together. Didn't even realize it when I opened it, but the kit does not come. These are the solid. I'm going to call them pistons, for lack of a better word, even though I know they're not pistons. But the wedges, so to speak. But there's those solid ones. So it does not come with any spares. Turns out you just push her through there. These are the adjustable ones. Pass through the adjustment part. And sit up there. The way I set that seal on the bottom was I used a socket that fit over the top, and I put it in like that. You're not going to be able to do that here. At least we're going from the top down, so on this one it'll be relatively simple to hopefully push it in there. Ignore the cat and the dog fighting. I do. So I'm using a quality light grade lithium grease inside the sleeve. Wipe around a little bit inside and keep that rust down. I didn't find which part of the manual I'm supposed to be looking at to take these apart, so I'm just winging it. And that quality lithium there. By the way, it probably matters way more that there is grease than what kind of grease you got. I'm positive of that. But here's my adjustments. I'm going to go with the bigger the gob, the better the job mentality. I don't want any of these threads rusting up. Alright, so the adjustment on the other side seems to be all the way down. So I'm going to put this one all the way down. Now here's our new spring-loaded doodads. Does not appear to matter which way they go. There it goes. Okay, so when it's in there properly, it passes all the way through. You want to make sure of that before you drop this down in, though it won't go if that's all the way through. But you want to make sure it goes all the way through. Pull it back and drop this down. And then you line it up, because the ears of your shoes, I'm going to get everything dirty. You know, the ears of your shoes are going to sit like so, and they're going to drop into those two spots. So that's the bottom shoe, not the top shoe. It don't matter right now. So that's where I want that. Well, best I can tell, that's in there properly. Now I need to find a way to seat this seal without wrecking it. Alright, so I've talked about this before, but you see that lip right there? Again, this is the bottom shoe. But you see that lip right there? Now, it doesn't bother anything with the brake drum, because the brake drum, you know, this is essentially the chamfer on the edge of the brake drum itself, and you know, it just wears in. However, it does get in the way of slipping a feeler gauge in to double check, because right here, that's your inspection port. Okay, you pop that out and you slip a feeler gauge in through, and it's really very tight. It's like 6/1000 clearance is all they want in there, so it's pretty tight. But since this brake shoe goes like this, you can see that that stupid lip gets in the way of actually accomplishing this rather common and simple task. Now, I'm not taking the rest of the wheels apart just to grind this off, but I do on each one that I pull apart. I take that stupid lip out of there just to make it slightly easier on myself. Alright, so this is the upper shoe, and it's clearly labeled for us which one is the adjuster end. And this one has got forward drum rotation marked on it. So that's those two in place. Now for the springs. The kit came with these. Right? Which I typically associated with front hubs where they're trying to clear stuff. But considering that the old green ones have fallen apart, I think we're going to use them anyways. I'm going to get some screwdrivers. Alright, there's one. My very first truck when I tore it down, these were in backwards in that front hub, and which meant that this bar bent in and rubbed on it, and they were almost worn in two. Almost worn in two. Okay, shoes are set. Alright, it's time to grease the wheel bearings. Now, this is an oiled hub. Alright, but there's never oil in it right from the beginning. And you can jack the truck up and tip it way to one side if you want to. Or you can just hedge your bets. And go ahead and grease them. Don't worry about it. It will have no effect on that gear oil whatsoever. This grease here is probably overkill. Just a regular, you know, Napa brand is what I've been running in these trucks for years. There you go. Not quite the same as a traditional wheel bearing pack, you'd want to do more grease than that. But this is an oiled hub. Now for the seals. So this is the seal that came out of it. It's got 3 lips, 1, 2, 3, and an internal spring. When they put it in, they damaged it, they bent it right there. As a result of that, it folded that lip in, which then just got ground into oblivion. So it became a 2-lip seal. You can tell it has almost no miles on it. And I'm going to replace it with this one, which is also a 2-lip seal. They're a different style. This is just one of the ones that came in one of the kits from all the different wheels I've done over the years. They're a different style. They come out to the same height. So I think we're going to be just fine. People always give me crap for doing it with a stick. I don't do this for a living. And I sure as hell don't need a really expensive bearing press tool just for doing these. Okay, so that's that. I'll put a little bit of this light lithium just to ease that seal's transition on there. Now it's time for a step back and to go through everything you've done, because you're about to put that drum on. And I don't want to have anything that I've forgotten in here. We've cleaned up our exciter ring, which is what triggers the ABS. While it's a little bit shot peened, it does appear to be in fine working condition. Tighten those, replace that clip, replace the springs, brake shroud is on and in place, ABS wires are not hung up on anything, both of those springs appear to be in fine shape there. We've polished. We've filed and polished the lip of our sealing surface, which, as I said before, has got a sleeve on it, which I do not like. We replace our springs, or our seal. There's no indication that this rubber has been rubbing on the face, so that seal is not too tall. I think we're ready to go. Now I just need to find a way to lift this thing onto here. If you just power lift it up in there, and I've done it, God help me, I've done it, and you run your seal over these threads somehow, then your seal is trashed. In theory it can't, but we all know that it can. So you got to come up with a way to at least get this thing started on here without bumming up the end of the axle shaft. Here is my setup. This is my spare tire davit crane. Right? It's just a 2,000-pound chain fall, and it's what I use to lift spare tires on and off. If you don't have one of these, you really should get one of these. I've got a bar across there, and it's clamped really firmly on this side. When the weight comes on, the bar actually hangs down, and it's a pretty slippery little bit. So I have got the chain fall hook wrapped around one lug nut stud right there with the lug nut on backwards to hold it in place, and I'm protecting the threads with a piece of polyurethane tubing. And I'm hoping it'll be reasonably balanced well enough that I can then lift it up into place, pull it back, slide her in, and get everything past the threads of doom right here without any rubbing. And not hurt myself. Let's give it a try. It didn't work perfectly, but it worked pretty adequately. I think if I was to do it again, I would cut myself a bar, right, and bend it, and I'd pick it up from right there, and that would be pretty darn balanced. But I didn't mark up any threads.
Where's Mom?
I didn't mark up any seals. Your mom's at work still. I'm going to do the same thing we did the last one. Let's get her lubed up, placed in the hole. That's what she said. A little weird. It doesn't seem to want to stay in there. It's got me worried that seal didn't seat right. Alright, that's better. That's loads better. Ouch, that hurt a lot. Wow. That hurt way more than I thought it would have. With this ring in there, how in the world does that hub get charged with gear oil? I don't think it can. So I'm going to charge the hub with gear oil. Just perfect. So, what they say is tighten this thing to 50 foot-pounds. Click. So, bonus points if you know who that's from. Tighten it to 50 foot-pounds and then you back it off. So you tighten this one to 50 foot-pounds and then you back it off a 1/16 to a quarter of a turn so the washer can be positioned. So more or less they're just having you tighten it up. And then having you loosen it a bit. Just like every other wheel bearing in the world. My advice to you is when it's super tight, give her a spin anyways. You really want to spin as you tighten. It might take you 2 guys. There she sits. And you put this one on. And you tighten it like a mofo. 250 to 400 foot-pounds on this outer one. You're not going to get that off with channel locks. I got to go find my big torque wrench and make her go click, but for the most part it's done. Some other miscellaneous stuff. I had this apart because I was pretty sure this line was loose and leaking. This line was loose and leaking earlier, but that seems to be holding. Unfortunately, it appears that it's the main shaft seal that's leaking a little bit. It's, best I can tell, that's all from this. Just when it sat there. It's got this thing where it doesn't really leak when it's running, but when you shut it off and it sits, it's kind of like old hydraulics, right? And then it just dribbles everything that's inside out. I have it here, and I have it underneath the transmission pan. Now, I found the transmission pan bolts, you know, a lot of them I felt weren't tight. So I went ahead and snugged those up, just carefully. You don't want to warp the pan. I'm hoping that it was just a transmission pan kind of thing. I'm going to do the same thing to the top. I want to make sure the PTO plate is sealing. We had a lot of trouble with that. There's just barely enough room to swap PTOs in these trucks without, you know, doing stuff. We took the studs out and replaced them with shorter studs by 1/4 of an inch, and that's how we got it. So I want to make sure that's not weeping. And then this is the filter for the pre-charge oiler. And the mount I built for it was too short. I had these little stubby filters. I didn't realize they were little stubby filters, but it's just too short by about 1/2 inch. So I got to cut it apart and stretch her some. She also has a nasty forward and backward vibration at certain RPMs. The harmonics kick in, so I wanna solve that as long as I'm in here, probably with a little gusset that comes down or goes back and grabs something over there. I do want to clean up the wiring for the pre-charge pump. You know, there's the relay for it. You can see it's zip tied. I just don't like it. I mean, it's all functional and it's got its fuses and whatnot, but it's just not very clean. I know I've mentioned this before, but if you're running these trucks, this set of lines right here that drape over the corner of that engine block going down to your starter motor, those they have to pass a corner of that block, and it's really sharp. So you need to get yourself some old radiator hose and slit it and clip them around that and zip tie it together, because if that shorts on the block, you are welding. You are straight taking power from the batteries and just welding to the truck, so you're going to burn it down. So you definitely want to do that. I don't see any signs of the dual fuel system leaking. So there's the line to the dual fuel running into the back of the heads. On the motor we have out. We did a hard line system because it was easy. On this one we did the rubber line system. Copied a guy out of Missoula and just drilled you take the firewall out, or the kick panel and the firewall out, and then just drilled a 4-inch hole to get to the back of the thing. That's how we did it. But it doesn't appear to be leaking. I guess I'll straighten this up. That's a bummer. I don't know, maybe I'll hang a catch can under it. As you can see, I've got a catch bottle catching the rear main leak. You know, that's a year's worth of accumulation right there. I'll have to empty that for this year. That ain't so bad for a year's worth. Normally I just let it drip on the ground, but doing what we do, it's just not the impression we hope to give. Yeah, everything else looks okay, or as bad as it was before. Let's get that fixed. Well, there it is. Lots more room. Pulled it back. I left myself another, I don't know, ½ inch there. It's certainly not going to vibrate. Good. I also got the stack cap fixed. I'd hooked it on the something. Somehow it all got bent to heck. I don't know how, considering it just sits up there, but somehow it all got bent to heck. So I got that straightened out. While I don't trust that tire, it no longer bubbles when I soap it, so I'm putting it back on. Let's get her done. Getting pretty close to being able to start it here. I'm going to peel that old inspection sticker off. We're getting pretty close to being able to start it. Well, that should be it. Dust covers are back on that wheel. The whole thing's been greased, except for the rearmost U-joint, which may or may not have been taking grease. I couldn't see. It was making a mess. But other than that, we should be ready to rock and roll. Fire her up. I'll be really curious to know if it builds air pressure a lot faster than it used to. Because if you remember, the compressor was running for a long dang time before it shut off last time. So those of you unfamiliar with this truck, I'll wait for it to build oil pressure with the prime pump, and then we'll hit it. No block heater, no coolant heater. Shouldn't have any problems today. Runs like an absolute top. Goes in it should with that brand new motor in it. Does show we did an okay job putting it in there though. Yeah. Gotta let her build some pressure. I still gotta clean out, reorganize, and restock the boxes with all of my bits and pieces that we carry along with us in our traveling menagerie show. Very nice. Very, very nice. Could use a window cleaning and just a bunch of little stuff to get her ready. Not that I'm cutting it close, mind you. I hope to drive it in the parade tomorrow. I should call and make sure I can register day of. And I better drive it around a bit. I'd sure hate the first and only shakedown cruise to be a leisurely twaddle through the parade. Yeah, here's hoping we're about ready to have ourselves an awesome season. A 5-ton, 6-wheel drive AM General Army truck is a big, powerful machine, and there are lots of ways that you can get hurt with it. But there is one thing above all others that will reach out and get you. It is why I look the way I do today. Haggard, sorrowful, a beaten, broken shell of a man. So today's video is on the most dangerous part of owning a 5-ton Army truck.